All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. My name is Shayan. I'm an e commerce project manager at Zago Sweden. We are a full service digital agency based out of Malmö, Sweden. We have over 8 years of experience in designing and building e commerce stores. We often collaborate with brands to craft bespoke e commerce solutions, delivering them results and driving growth. We have extensive experience working with clothing, fashion, and jewelry brands. We also have clients in sports and recreation space, as well as in the food and beverage industry. We are accredited Shopify Solutions partner since 2014 and have completed over 2,000 projects since then. We are a team of 27 people who are experts in their own line of field. We are considered as a creative agency led by really good design, solid technical know-how, and our strength lies in crafting really simple, refined customer experiences that reflect a brand's DNA and personality. All right, so today I am here to talk to you about Headless Commerce. I'll be focusing on three important points. First of all, I'll talk about what is headless commerce. Second, we'll look at how it works. And third, we'll see if you really need to adopt this approach. All right, so let's get started. So starting off with what is headless commerce? So let's discover what really stands behind this buzzword. The term headless commerce might sound a bit abstract to many of you, but its definition is much easier than the name might suggest. So if I put it in simple terms, headless commerce is an approach that separates the front end of an e-commerce platform from its back end, making them independent of each other, yet connected through the help of APIs. All right, so however, this is not the case in a traditional e-commerce setup where both the front end and the back end are tightly knitted together. So they're almost coupled together in a traditional system. However, in a headless system, we simply take these two systems apart, the front end and the back end, and we have actually three components in place. There's a front end, a back end, and then we have these two communicate through an API, which is the third part of it, obviously. We'll explore this more deeply later in our topic about headless architecture. So this kind of setup, it essentially allows the merchants to become more flexible and agile. They don't have to choose from one pre-existing solution. In fact, they can choose from whatever services they want to choose and create a mix and match of those best services out there and combine them into one consolidated system. They can also switch these services for better ones later if needed, quite easily. For example, if they think, okay, I now need to switch my e-commerce services from Shopify to BigCommerce, or maybe add another payment processor down the line. So that's no problem with a headless commerce system. They also have the freedom to create unique storefronts for their audiences and better support their customer journeys on their online buying journey without impacting or needing to tweak the back end of their stores and vice versa. So the following diagram, the diagram that you currently see, further elaborates on this idea. So the head is basically the front end. Think of it as a user interface, social commerce, a digital marketplace, IoT, or anything in between. Can be updated or totally changed without interfering with the back end. That brings us to the body, which is the back end, where you store all the data and manage the content that can easily be distributed identically, irrespective of its type or destination. So basically, these two systems between these two systems, API is at the heart of it. So, and is very crucial to a headless architecture. It is responsible for all the deliverables and communication between the front end and the back end. Headless Commerce strongly emphasizes the philosophy of COPE, that is, create once and publish everywhere. This was first coined by NPR, National Public Radio in the US. All right, so as we saw, this groundbreaking approach essentially gives you the ability to plug into any existing channels and deliver your content anywhere. Okay, so now let's see why headless commerce. I think there are a lot of solutions out there and various use cases, and can get really confusing. So we'll try to dig more into what type of solutions exist and what they can do for you. So this kind of gives you a picture of what today's e-commerce solutions offers you. These off-the-shelf e-commerce systems are usually tightly coupled front-end and back-end systems. So the content management module allows you to manage the marketing side of things, like creating web pages or blogs and content, stuff like that. Product management would be adding new products, variants, managing inventory, and stuff like that. Store management would be everything that is more logistics about running your store, things like orders, customers, taxes, and shipping, and all that kind of stuff. Cart and checkout experience is the add to cart functionality on the site, and then the actual shopping cart UI and the whole checkout experience, like billing information, shipping information, and obviously payment processing as well. Website design, it speaks for itself, so that's almost like says all. So that's basically how a traditional e-commerce system lets you manage a storefront. Okay, so moving on to our next slide. Shopping is evolving big time. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is that, is your e-commerce system ready to meet these emerging fronts? So as more shopping happens outside of the traditional website, such as on mobile, social, or IoT channels, it is believed that the traditional e-commerce platforms, they might not be quick enough to adapt to these rapidly changing touchpoints and user experience in a reasonable amount of time. So e-commerce growth is being driven in part by the increase in usage of mobile devices. People don't just shop online now, they are also using their mobile devices to browse or research, before making their mind up about their purchases. So by the end of 2021, 73% of e-commerce sales will take place on a mobile device. These figures just can't be ignored, obviously. So improving the e-commerce experience for mobile customers can be a huge opportunity for the businesses to tap into. It's also pretty amazing to see how social media is playing its role. It has changed the way we live our daily lives, including the way we buy things. And therefore, the number of social shoppers is also rapidly increasing with each passing day. Giants like Facebook and Instagram are tapping into the e-commerce space and introducing new ways for the users to make their purchases on their platforms. With the introduction of the buy button on Facebook and Instagram checkout, social media is getting its foot inside the e-commerce doors, and I've seen a big growth in Facebook and Instagram commerce, and I think we are going to see a lot of more of that very soon. And then there's a lot happening in the IoT space, where we have smart home devices itching to make their way in, like voice activated speakers. Then there are dash buttons, as well as augmented reality, which will soon transform the way we shop. New touch points such as these are literally just around the corner, gearing up for mass adoption, and therefore businesses should have the infrastructure ready to deliver on these platforms. By 2022, it is believed that over 120,000 stores will be using augmented reality technologies, offering a much more richer buying experience. So yeah, the whole digital shopping landscape is seeing a tectonic shift in terms of how we are going to purchase in the near future. The whole idea behind telling you all this is that in the current scenario, the user interfaces are vastly different from each of the devices we interact with and are tightly coupled with their unique backends and business logic. However, as we saw earlier, the list of user interfaces is growing and will continue to grow rapidly, and so it may become increasingly difficult for the businesses to keep up with them. Headless commerce is the answer to this. With the headless approach, one unified backend will be able to handle and deliver to all kinds of user interfaces you throw at it, with no interdependence on each other. Something that makes this technology really cool and something to look forward to. Okay, so before you decide whether it's a wise move for your business, I think it will be useful to compare a headless setup to a traditional e-commerce setup. So the contrast between these two systems can highlight some of the key advantages of the headless model. Traditional commerce system does has its share of limitations, and primarily because of its architecture, which has the front end and the back end tightly coupled. Therefore, you're kind of forced to use the front end that comes off the shelf. This causes little or no chance to make any desired customizations or editing your workflow or even adding a data field. What I'm trying to say here is that the templates and prepackaged software dictates the whole user experience, and you're just caught inside the box. Also, typically the components associated with a traditional model have to run in a specific order for the entire system to work as expected. Traditional platforms are designed to deliver content in the form of websites and maybe native mobile apps at max. You just cannot expect them to deliver on the emerging channels as of now. So one of the other limitations is that they allow both the end user and the administrative users to have a predetermined experience related to their respective activities. So on the contrary, in a headless commerce ecosystem, there are no design constraints, and so it opens a free pathway to innovate and design a front end experience that is unique to your brand without any restrictions. The devs don't need to worry about any changes to the backend databases, as well, all they have to do is make a simple API call and boom, the data is available in the UI. You also don't have to follow a templated approach or be generic in other terms. This is why Headless offers a truly cutting-edge way of managing the web content and the user experience hand in hand. You can simply plug in the commerce functionality to any additional channels and deliver your content literally anywhere. So, Headless Commerce. Now let's quickly see what are the advantages and the trade-offs of a headless commerce system. So headless commerce, it does opens the door of innumerable possibilities to reinvent the retail experience, and so it imposes an innovative approach to creating better user experiences. Due to a separate display logic, the headless applications, they do tend to work faster, are more responsive, and they're easier to maintain or update. They are also better prepared for localization and translation to reach a global audience, if this is something really important to you. With headless e-commerce, a store can easily be accessed from different touch points such as smart speakers, wearables, or a mobile app maybe, which improves the accessibility and the overall customer experience. Well, such a flexible approach is ideal for brands that aspire to evolve and grow in the future, or those who need a very specific front end. Furthermore, a headless architecture is designed to scale instantaneously to prevent traffic spikes from crashing the system. And with dynamic scaling abilities, visitors can enjoy uninterrupted service even when things get busy. It's also easier to add more bandwidth to carts and payment systems at peak times, as well as the ability to reduce capacity when things tend to get slower. Now, on the flip side, headless commerce development can be a more complex system, as with implementing any new technology, the initial setup costs could be potentially high, and that needs to be considered. The total cost of the ownership may increase based on number of individual platforms and integrations used, the number of different components, their deployments, hosting, storage used, and maintenance, stuff like that. All this adds up to the total cost, and it can be higher than a traditional e-commerce platform in some cases. You may also need to invest in the front-end development without using a theme as a foundation. So the implication is that you need to develop the front end and integrate into the e-commerce services so that the data will be rendered by the front end using API calls to the e-commerce layer. To use headless commerce to the best of its potential, there is a need to make sure that the devs are motivated and adopted well, and they have all the right tools to succeed with the development part. The functionality can potentially be limited to what your CMS allows in regards to third-party tool integration. So you might also need to check what your CMS does and does not support before moving forward with this approach. Headless systems also lack the benefit of continuous updates, while traditional SaaS systems are more frequently updated. Such frequency might not be achieved with a headless system because the dev team is going to be solely responsible for any kind of updates to the system. All right, so now we have evaluated some pros and cons of a headless commerce system. Let's quickly see how headless commerce works. So let's explore how this technology actually works. So before moving forward, here are the two things to take note of before we dive into it further. So first, API runs the show in a headless commerce ecosystem. Second, the APIs fetch the data from the backend and deliver it to the front end. So moving on, as we saw earlier, the system is made up of three parts: the head, the front end, the body, which is the backend, and the API. The head or the front end are usually different channels, different channels where the content can be displayed. It can literally be any digital device or platform that a user interacts with. The body is where the action actually takes place behind the scenes. It obviously is not visible to the user, but all what the user sees on the front end is obviously managed through the back end. All right, so if you were watching closely, you might have noticed that the most important component is missing in this picture. So let's find out about that more. So yes, indeed, it's the magic of the API. All right, so API, or the application programming interface, is at the core of a headless system. It is the one responsible for all the communication between the front end layer and the back end layer. In essence, the front end and the back end, they speak to each other via simple API calls and exchange information in the background. All right, so as you can see in this diagram over here, the backend, the storage or database layer, items like security and infrastructure, pricing, checkout, and customer information, they all invisibly run in the background. The data from these services can be pulled right through the API, or the magic layer, as I would say, and from there it is passed on to the front end, where it can be utilized at different platforms and delivery channels like wearable tech, IoT devices, for example, smart appliances, voice-activated speakers, can be in-store kiosks, could be the apps running on any platform, social networks, and just about everything in between. So the backend here is just not one thing. It is made up of blocks of isolated microservices, which are used for whichever purpose we want to use them for. These modules or blocks of services, they work independently and respond accordingly whenever a request is received from the front end. For example, we can have Shopify, or maybe we can have BigCommerce as an e-commerce services module for the product information management and ordering. And then maybe we can have Algolia module, which we can use for the search services, and then maybe we can use PayPal as the payment processor. So since these services are operating independently, they don't necessarily need to talk to each other and can just directly go and respond to the API and eventually deliver results on the front end. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea of how the headless system works in general. And so now let's move on to our next slide, which is what is a headless commerce architecture. Okay, so now that we understand how headless commerce works through the magic of APIs, let's quickly see what actually is a headless architecture. So headless architecture is an API-driven microservices architecture that wraps up all the business logic and the functionalities in a set of APIs, which are powered by specialized backends. It aims at pushing your data or content to any type of platform through APIs. They are made available so that any front-end channel can hook into these APIs and provide the customer experience desired for that channel. Okay, so do you really need it? That's the most important question. So in this final section, I will be presenting some of the key points you need to consider before deciding which flavor to choose for a digital commerce architecture. Overall, I would say your business goals, expectations of customers, required functionalities, and budget to expand on digital commerce are factors that can drive the final decision. Headless architecture might look very appealing at first sight, but in my opinion, you must apply some critical thinking and try to understand the both sides of the coin. In all cases, though, a thorough analysis of the whole digital landscape of business and a future roadmap should be executed before making a choice between a traditional commerce or a headless architecture. Okay, so headless commerce can be a good choice for your business if you plan to introduce multiple touch points and you want to create a seamless digital experience. So if you're looking to create an omni-channel experience, which is a multi-channel approach to marketing, selling, and serving customers in a way that creates an integrated and cohesive customer experience no matter how or where a customer reaches out, could be through a wearable or a voice-activated device maybe, or simply on a mobile app. In such cases, adapting the headless approach is the right way to move forward. Also, if you plan to have a multi-site or global selling requirement serving multiple front-end experiences or want them to be powered by the same backend, so maybe if you're looking to scale globally and tap into new geographic areas, Headless Commerce allows you to personalize for different regions quite effortlessly. Headless Commerce systems can create subsets of pages, subsets of page content for apps and sites. It also allows you to translating languages more accurately prior to content distribution. They can also encode the content with the appropriate characters and alphabets. So if that's one of your use cases, headless approach is really worth considering it. Third, maybe if you have a content-driven marketing strategy, so maybe you want to tell your brand story in a compelling way that offers value to your potential customers and build their trust in your brand and moves them into the action to interact with the brand. It can also be beneficial if you are an experience-focused brand like a direct-to-consumer brand, maybe selling lifestyle products, or maybe rely heavily on influencer advertising. In such all cases, an experience-led strategy like Headless Commerce may work for you very well. Okay, then if you are looking to have the ability to implement personalization, like in maybe artificial intelligence, machine learning, or augmented reality. So as the brands, they are looking for new ways of communication and keeping the customers engaged. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are contributing heavily to the process. So probably if you're aiming at prospective buyers to increase sales and recommending them products based on their browsing and buying behaviors, or maybe giving them tailored alerts on discounts, maybe personalized replies to their inquiries, or just sending them reminders about the wish list they have. So these are some popular e-commerce personalization strategies that you might need, but that you might be thinking to adopt, and which could be done with the help of a headless approach. Okay, so e-commerce platforms. That now let's have a quick look at. Lastly, I forgot to tell that maybe if you're looking to add a commerce solution to your existing CMS, in that case as well, headless could be the right way to go forward. Okay, so some of the other considerations. So let me just quickly skip to the next slide. Yeah, let's first see some of the popular headless commerce platforms we have right now in the market. So Shopify Plus, we have BigCommerce, then we have Commerce Tools, and also Adobe Commerce, formerly known as Magento. So yes, Shopify Plus users do have access to the APIs, which can expose product information to third-party systems. However, CMS, maybe like Contentful, will be needed to handle additional content at scale. Okay, so now you have found out that Shopify supports the headless architecture. Just in case you all are looking to jump the ship, I would also like to bring up some other considerations to keep in mind before doing so. So first of all, Shopify apps. With Headless Shopify solution, you won't be able to use them all. You won't be able to use Shopify apps unless they have an API. And there must be a built-in way that allows for the integration with the headless build. In my experience, you are only going to find some luck with the popular apps out there. Maybe, for example, like for financial and checkout tools, apps like Recharge for subscriptions or Klarna for financing. For marketing tools, there is Klaviyo, and for customer interaction, there is Gorgias, Smile.io, and Okendo. So before going the headless route, I would suggest making a list of all Shopify apps that you currently use and analyze what's absolutely necessary for your storefront. See what can be dropped and what needs custom integration. So second, you'll be losing access to native Shopify theme customizer, and that's why headless CMS becomes so very important, and it can be equally challenging to make that shift. So I would recommend analyzing all the current pages on your website and mapping out all the data fields you'll be needing before migrating to a headless solution. Lastly, do keep in mind the extra costs for external site hosting and maintenance. I would also like to emphasize that you cannot just utilize just about any Shopify developer out there when going headless. Ideally, you would want to find an agency partner or an in-house developer who has relevant experience building with a modernized tech stack. This is really crucial because there is a vast difference between building a regular e-commerce website as compared to creating a headless commerce website. All right, so before I wrap this up, I just quickly want to show you some really nice examples of Shopify headless builds. So first up I have in my list is this website called Yoga Girl. This website uses Contentful as their CMS, which is integrated with Shopify as the e-commerce solution on the back end. This gives the website really fast speeds, a clean look, and lots of other functionalities. Second is Chili's, this eco-friendly insulated bottles company. They decided to go headless and integrate Shopify Plus with Datto CMS. The former handles the e-commerce cart, and while the latter powers the content on the front end. So the headless solution provided a number of wins like improved speed and performance, better SEO, and they had faster deployment times. Third one, this is a very slick looking skincare brand known as Frankbody. They created their platform using Shopify with some help from WordPress. And it's pretty amazing how these two major systems got integrated with each other. Headless e-commerce solution brought a high number of direct and search traffic. The website itself, it really stands out with its unusual design and attractive user experience. It is also extremely compelling and easy to use. The content is customer generated and focused on engaging them as much as possible. So the fourth and the last one on my list is the Seedlip drink. This is a almost perfect example of a content-driven website. So the templates are nicely designed and they do not follow a regular convention. It uses custom Vue.js front end, working hand in hand with Shopify as an e-commerce backend. So the cart loads as an overlay, and it then takes you to a Shopify checkout. The key functions of the store are super fast. It makes good example of how headless Shopify can be approached. Okay, so yeah, that's all, folks. With that said, I would like to wrap up my presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a thing or two about headless commerce. Thanks for watching.